news here because I'm trying to give you guys a. See, we started with Iran, then we made fun of Trump. Now we got to do something negative. See, it's a news sandwich. We'll give you some bad news, some good news, some bad news, some good news, some bad news. See, so Supreme Court ruled the other day on a basically on a rule on a bill in Idaho that bans transgender teenagers from getting affirming care for transgenderism, which would be some medical treatment. It has to do with therapy and other stuff like that, hormone blockers, things like that. Stuff that's approved by the American Psychiatric Association, the American Pediatric Association, pretty much all medical associations, doctors, scientists. This is well proven, studied stuff. The Supreme Court said, you know what, you can ban it. So basically, taking away rights from transgender children. Like, they don't have it fucking hard enough in this world. So we're gonna jump right into that.
We're learning the Supreme Court is letting Idaho enforce its ban on gender-affirming care for transgender kids, a law that could potentially put doctors behind bars if they give a child under the age of 18 hormones or puberty blockers or any other gender-affirming care. Lawrence Hurley is joining us now. Bring us up to speed.
Yeah, so basically the court divided, with the 3 liberal justices dissenting, has allowed this law to go into effect almost fully. What they're saying is that the 2 transgender teens who challenged the law, they can still pursue their claim, and it's not going to be enforced against them. But a district court went too far in saying that the entire law had to be blocked. And so that means that it can still be enforced against other people. And one key provision, which is one concerning a ban on surgery, which will remain blocked too. And the court says, among other things, that the 2 teens in this case had not said that they were requiring surgery anyway, which is one of the reasons why the law shouldn't be blocked as a whole. Those 2 teens were getting puberty blockers and estrogen, and they will still be able to get the care that they need. But anyone else in the state who maybe needs that care or would like surgery, who's in that same position, would not be able to get it for now.
Thanks.
So, just horrendous shit. I mean, kind of unnecessary. The one thing that I thought was interesting about this is that so many transgender kids, especially, the suicide rates are ridiculous. They're like 17 times more likely because they're so ostracized by society. And Idaho's horrible. I mean, it's a red state. I'm sure these kids have it rough. I actually looked at a couple studies. I didn't want to get into them, but I wanted you to sort of get into this to sort of prove my point. So this is Columbia Psychiatry from Columbia University, Irving Medical Center. So they wrote this article, Gender-Affirming Care Saves Lives. Growing legislation attempts to limit, ban, or criminalize access to this critical model of medical care endangers the health and well-being of transgender and non-binary youth. So research demonstrates that gender-affirming care, or medical and psychological health care designed to affirm individuals' gender identities, greatly improves the mental health and overall well-being of gender-diverse, transgender, and non-binary children and adolescents. Unfortunately, 22 has been a record-breaking year for legislation attempting to limit, ban, or criminalize access to gender-affirming treatment for transgender youth under 18. This week, the Arkansas State Senate passed a bill prohibiting doctors from treating transgender, non-binary, blah, blah, blah. So it's just higher rates of anxiety, depression, suicidal ideation, like I just said. Rates of depression are just regulated. Opposition to efforts to restrict access to care, and they talk about what the opposition is, whether like hormone therapy and puberty blockers are kind of the big ones. Not a lot of kids get surgery. In some cases it might make sense, but typically like hormone blockers would be the more common one, and they always want to push this like it's irreversible and you can't do it. And once the kids start, it's not. We've been using hormone blockers since the 70s. Initially, they were designed for kids who had specific puberty problems or growth problems to prevent them from, being, injured. They needed them to be a little bit older and grow a little bit more gradually. So puberty blockers is when you go to puberty, all of a sudden, if you're a guy, it's testosterone. If you're female, it's estrogen. Your body starts producing large quantities of it, right? And that's kind of where you're your sexual sort of self gets developed, right? Because all of a sudden it's like, I remember when I was a kid, it's like girls, one moment they weren't there, and the next moment they were everywhere. Right? It's like, it happens. It just goes off. So what they do is,
You know,
go ahead.
I just want to, put real human form to this, all of this, information and data and all of that. These are real teenagers. These are real people. And there's a transgender person in my life that is a teenager and was really a very late bloomer and did not get access to the puberty blockers that they wanted, and started menstruating and really had quite a mental breakdown, became incredibly suicidal, had to be hospitalized for suicidal ideation, multiple attempts. So, it's easy for people to blindly decide that they should be able to not allow teenagers to do X, Y, Z, but not really peel the onion back and look at the other layers of, what it is you're dictating and what other issues might be caused. Why not let parents and doctors, make these choices, as opposed to, blanket legislation against entire groups of people?
Well, and I would even go further to say, I think if you have medical doctors, they should be able, even if the parents want to stop the child, and a medical doctor deems it's necessary, in whatever case that might happen, I don't know what it would be, but I would defer to the medical professionals, because the way it works with puberty blockers is they give them to the kid right before about the time they're going to start puberty, and the idea is to buy more time for therapy, so the kid can have a chance to decide, okay, am I male, or do I identify, well, I mean, they're male or female at birth, but do I identify as a man or a woman, right? A boy or a girl. And they can continue with that while the kid gets a little older and starts to develop their own identity a little bit more. Because when you're 11, 12 and you start puberty, you're not really, I mean, you're still kind of, attached to your parents. It's not until you become a teenager you start kind of forming who you are a little bit more. And so psychologists, their whole argument is, okay, so we'll do a little bit more of that, and then by the time they're 13, 14 or 15, right, they're a little bit more mature, and they can make that decision, then we can decide, okay, is it appropriate to go through with gender transition and give them estrogen or testosterone, whatever it is, depending on what gender they choose, or was it a phase or something that happened and they changed their mind or whatever, and the gender dysphoria just went away, and it wasn't that they weren't really transgender, they just were confused or something. And in that case, either way, you take them off the puberty blockers, and then you either give them estrogen, testosterone, or you don't. Puberty hits them like a freaking truck, and that's what happens. And so, I mean, they've used it for other reasons, but they've been doing this for years, and it's. The thing about puberty blockers is totally reversible. You just take them off and then they go through puberty. And it's pretty instant, right? It happens pretty quick. But to get puberty blockers and to get that kind of treatment, you're talking about years and years of therapy and psychologists. And we're not talking about one opinion. You're talking about you have to have multiple psychologists agree, right? Because they don't want to do that and accidentally push the kid one way or the other if that's not the case. It's not one you want to fuck up, right? So, I mean, just by denying that, though, to these children, more of them are going to commit suicide, they're going to get harassed more in school, they're going to have a harder time growing up because they'll be pushed into a sex and an identity that they don't identify with, just because that's how they were born. I think it's just horrific. Fucked up shit. I didn't really have anything else to add, but, once again, the shitty Supreme Court that we have overruling doctors. We know better.
Just let the doctors be the doctors.
Yeah. Well, I don't know why we're deferring to a court that won't defer to experts. You know.
Well, I don't want the court making any medical decisions for me. I want it to be between me and doctors. I mean, this feels really obvious to me.
Yeah, it just seems like one where it's just weird shit. Anyway, so I just wanted to go through this, just how stupid this whole thing is. So in Idaho, let's see, it's about 1.3 million adults in Idaho. About 0.5% identifies transgender among youths 13 to 17. In the total U.S., it's about 1.4% because it's a little bit more accepted now, so you see more people coming out. So that's 300,000 kids between 13 and 17 in the entire United States. Right? It's like 1 out of 100 children. It's very rare. It's not super common. So if you factor this in, just in Idaho, you're talking about, we're going through this whole bill, this whole law, to basically take away medical treatment and rights in Idaho from 6,500 children.
Yeah, that's spending a lot of time and energy and resources trying to take some rights away from
A small group.
A very small group of people and kids at that. Like, come on now.
Yeah, this is like using a battleship to kill a mosquito. It's ridiculous. And even then, it's like the mosquito's not hurting anybody. The mosquito just wants to live its life. I mean, but yeah, not to compare transgender people to a mosquito. I'm just saying it's overkill for something that shouldn't even be happening in the first place. Just to show you how ridiculous the whole thing is. And it's not an issue that wins at the polls, but the Republicans still seem stuck on this for some reason. But you're talking about 6,500 out of 465,000 children in Idaho. It's just, it's stupid. Whole thing's stupid. But let's skip to something fun here. Once again, news sandwich. So, while the Republicans are assholes and their Republican justices are assholes and taking away rights from women and trans people and gay people and, you know, all that stuff,